Welcome back, and now we're delighted to be joined over the telephone by His Excellency Ambassador Medhat Meligi, the former Assistant Foreign Minister. It's a very good afternoon to you, Mr. Ambassador.
Good afternoon to you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for joining us this afternoon. Let me start by asking you, Mr. Ambassador, how do you see President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's visit to China, the importance of such a visit, and if you can, wrap up the visit in a quick summary?
Well, actually, we have to look at the visit from three different angles. The first one is the bilateral relation between Egypt and China. President el-Sisi is always with us here in Egypt. So when he chose to go for a visit, for a 5-day visit to China, that shows the depth of the visit and the importance to this visit to Egypt.
Yes.
So this is the first angle, which is, or the first axis, which is about the bilateral relation between Egypt and China. The second axis, which is even a more important axis, which is the Arab-China summit that were presided, of course, by Xi Jinping, the president of China, and it shows a certain commitment from the Arab world towards having better relations with China. Of course, from my personal perspective, I would have loved to see more countries involved and more countries present. Of course, we had 4 countries only, from which is Egypt, which is the leading country of the Arab world. And of course, the King of Bahrain was there, and Bahrain, of course, as we all know, were presiding over the 33rd Arab Summit very, very recently in Bahrain. And of course, we have 2 other countries which are also important to the visit.
Yes.
But what I want to focus on, which is the timing of the visit, which is the third angle of the visit, the genocide that is taking place in Gaza and the importance of consolidating the relationship and the support of China towards the Palestinian cause. China was reluctant to a certain level to involve itself in international politics, but this has changed. In the recent years, we have seen China doing intermediary work between, as we all remember, between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and they even hosted reconciliation between the 2 countries, which led to a rapprochement in the relations between those big countries in Asia.
Absolutely.
So I think that those are the 3 main axis from which we can look at the visit and the importance of China as a superpower. Very soon we are going to see China as superpower #1 in the world. It's going to be even preceding the United States, according to many statistics and many studies that have been done on the power of each of the countries and how China is rising to become the most powerful country in the world. So from here comes the importance of the visit.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Mr. Ambassador. Now, of course, you mentioned 3 main parts that I'd like to further discuss with you. But before we get into that, on the 10th anniversary of the upgrading of relations between Egypt and China to the level of strategic partnership is when the visit occurred. What are some of the most important areas with regards to partnership and cooperation between Egypt and China, and the upgrading to strategic partnership? What exactly does this entail?
Well, actually, first of all, we have to look at from our own perspective here in Egypt. President Sisi and his government, we have undertaken a lot of economic reforms in order to prepare and pave the way for more investment in Egypt.
Yes.
And I think that we have seen more and more Chinese involvement in Egypt. Of course, it comes with the 10th anniversary of the upgrading of the relation to a strategic level. But nevertheless, I think that this has a driven force by itself, because Egypt is becoming more attractive to foreign investors now, and China as one of the leading investing countries in the world, whether we are talking about the country itself, the government itself of China, or its private sector. So actually I would like to seize this opportunity to invite more of our private sector to involve itself with more projects with the Chinese counterparts in the same field, especially that China is a leading company, is a leading power in so many axis of economy and trade in the world, especially when we are talking about energy and renewable energy in particular.
Mm-hmm.
So there are so many aspects of the power of China that we could use in Egypt in order to boost our economy.
Absolutely.
And I think that the main objective of the president by his long visit to China is to prepare the umbrella under which many of our private sector activists are going to be working from within. So I think this is the most important thing that the government is preparing for our private sector in order to work more with a powerful country that has already a history in Egypt and that has already interest in working more with the Egyptian government and private sector.
Absolutely. Mr. Ambassador, now President Sisi met as well with the several heads of major Chinese companies operating in different or various fields. How do you see these meetings, and how were they an opportunity to explore, more attractive investment opportunities in Egypt for these Chinese companies?
Well, that's exactly what I was talking about in my last point when I mentioned that the government is paving the way for our private sector to get more involved. And the visit receiving the President Sisi receiving many directors of major companies shows, first of all, the interest that Egypt is giving to the Chinese company in those fields, which is mainly the fields of energy and agriculture and many other fields. Actually, I don't want to mention anything, so I wouldn't drop out any of the other fields that are interesting. But I'm sure that the government coming back is going to prepare a dossier for the private sector who is interested to work with these companies in order to complete the triangle from the government and the Chinese counterpart, and now the private sector is going to close the triangle in order to develop furthermore our economy on one hand, and this is one of the most important things that President Sisi has spoken about, the transfer of technology into Egypt. And this is the most important thing. The idea is not just about trade and commerce. Actually, there is a most important aspect, which is to settle more industries in Egypt, especially in fields that China is excelling in, such as energy and other fields that we mentioned earlier.
Absolutely. Your Excellency, now Egyptian foreign policy is also characterized by diversity of alliances, which is a very important thing. The importance of cooperation with all international and political powers as well, diversifying relations with regards to foreign policy with Egypt. How important do you see this diversification process? How beneficial is it for Egypt, in your opinion, sir?
Well, actually, it's very important. If you remember during the speech of His Excellency, the President of the Republic, when he mentioned tripartite project, that's exactly what you are talking about, which is the possibility of Egypt collaborating with China in favor of a third party. This third party could be in the Arab world and could also be, and this is one of my personal main concerns, which is Africa. So we can craft industries and craft products that are going to be presented to the African market between Egypt and China. And that's what the President mentioned when he talked about the tripartite project, because this would not just benefit Egypt or China. Actually, there will be a third party who is going to benefit from these aspirations or from these projects, which is the African continent.
Absolutely.
And, as we have seen before, and how the President is leaning towards Africa in order to boost the relationship in the same framework of South-South relations. And this is also bringing us to what the President has mentioned about South-South relations. And I think that China understands very much that Egypt could be a golden door to further implication into Africa, although it has its own relations with Africa.
Indeed, I was just going to...
It can even boost it more and excel more in the same direction.
Absolutely. I was just going to ask you about that, Mr. Ambassador. China has taken a great interest in the African continent, as well as launching the Belt and Road Initiative, which has really allowed China to delve further into many African nations, work in projects related to infrastructural development, roads, etc., in many African states. And Egypt, as you said, is very uniquely positioned as a gateway for China into the African continent. Again, the advantage of having, you know, our geographic position in the world, allowing China more access to the continent. Finally,
if I may add just one very
Sure.
important, crucial point.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador.
Until very recently, China was more interested in infrastructure projects, which are projects with the African government.
Yes.
I have been, as you know, I was an ambassador appointed to several countries in Africa.
Yes.
And I have seen it firsthand how China is implicated in many projects of infrastructure. The presence of Egypt in this kind of tripartite projects would enable China to enter in smaller scale projects in various fields, such as energy, such as agriculture, industries, and so on, which was not actually the main objective of China so far. So the presence of Egypt will enable it to enter new markets within the same countries that it previously worked with.
Absolutely.
And from here comes the importance of the tripartite projects, as we mentioned, between Egypt, China, and the African continent.
Absolutely right. On that note, I'd like to thank you very, very much, Your Excellency, Ambassador Medhat Meligi, former Assistant to Foreign Minister. Thank you very much, sir, for your time and